So let's talk about the type of cheese we're going to make. So we're going to make Fromage Blanc. That's what it's called if it's cow's milk. If it's goat or sheep, it's called Chevre. Basically the same type of cheese. And so the things that you need to make this cheese, you either need like a double boiler. Basically, we just want to warm the milk very, very gently. So if you have cast iron enamelware, that works really well. You don't have to do the double boiler. But if you don't, just create with something you have a double boiler situation, or use a double boiler. You need a long-handled, seamless stainless spoon. This is specifically for cheese making, but you really want to make sure with cheese making that everything is seamless. With your pot that you're going to use, it needs to be seamless too. So there's a lot of stainless steel pots, but they'll have rivets on the inside. This is not good for cheese making because you can't really get that pot clean, and we're not going to a temperature high enough to safely, well, we don't want to pasteurize the milk, but to make sure the milk doesn't pick up any bacteria that might be around those rivets in a stainless steel pot. So you need the pot, the spoon. For draining, you can use like a long-handled wooden spoon and just tie it around that and drain it over a pot, or I used to hang it on the handles in my kitchen. Here, I just leave it sitting in the sink in a strainer. You need a thermometer, that's very important. And if you're gonna get a thermometer, don't get one with the plastic cords. I went through probably like 4 before I bought this one, and it was an investment, but I've been using it for probably 6 or 7 years now, and it was well worth the investment. Measuring spoons, measuring cups, butter muslin. This is butter muslin, so it's just a nice fine weave. If you don't have butter muslin, I have made many a batch of cheese with just 100% cotton pillowcase, just an unbleached one. You can pick them up at Walmart, and that works just fine too. And then you need a strainer. And then, so equipment and workspace stuff. Now keep in mind this presentation I did for the University of Idaho Master Food Safety Program, so it's kind of geared more towards that. So sanitizing and cleaning your workspace and your equipment is probably arguably the most important part of cheese making, because again, we're not getting the cheese up to temperatures that are going to be high enough to kill anything. So you need to make sure your workspace is really clean and your equipment's really clean. So you need to wash it with soap and water, and then like in the commercial setting that I'm in, I do use bleach. 1 teaspoon to a gallon of water is ample. It can't be hot water. Hot water makes bleach inactive. So you have to use, so you have to use like tepid water. And then I'm not a huge fan of bleach, but I need to do that just because of resale issues. So what I do after I bleach it is I just rinse everything really well with cool water again to get any residue from the bleach off. You want to do that with your workspace. You want to do that with your pots, with all of your equipment.
So what about using bleach on pots that have rivets? Would that help, or it doesn't?
No, because there can still be crusty stuff underneath those rivets that you can't get to, and just because the bleach comes in contact with it doesn't mean that it will sanitize it. So you just really need smooth stainless. Like these are the pots that I use. Yeah. And you can get them in all sizes. Sometimes you can find them at the thrift stores. Those are 4-gallon ones. So that seems to be a good size for me. So we talked about cleaning. Okay, so then we'll just go to the good old cheese making. So for this, we're going to do a gallon. Actually, we're going to do a half gallon because that's what I poured in the pot. And so we're gonna heat it to 86 degrees. My preferred method of making cheese is to use milk fresh from the animal. I feel like you get the best curd, the best set. If you can't do that, then heat it to 86 degrees very gently, which is why I'm using the electric versus the propane is not gentle. So just heat it gently. If you do have propane and it wants to heat up really fast, you can get one of those trivets that you use on the stove, and that works great. So we're gonna heat it up to 86, and you can do this with pasteurized milk. It is harder to set than raw milk. So you can put some cream, use some cream in part of it instead of the milk, and that will help you get a better set for your cheese. But raw milk honestly just really makes a much better product. So the culture that we're going to be using today is, this is a Danisco one. Nope, it is. It's a Danisco culture. It's MM100. This is specifically for a soft cheese. It's made to be used in cheeses that are under 90 degrees. So with your cultures, you have cultures that are for different temperatures of milk, along with different flavor profiles. You'll find, like, if you go to like New England Cheesemaking, they have a great website. Lots of tutorials, really interesting. For soft cheeses, a lot of their soft cheese cultures will already have the rennet in the culture. So you have to really look closely at that. Like, so I'm using rennet and culture because I want to be able to control the amount of rennet I'm going to put in. But they do have tablets that it's just all in one and you just put it in the bowl. So, over 86. So, what we will do is take 1/8 of a teaspoon of this, and you're just going to sprinkle it over the surface of the milk, and we're going to let it set for a few minutes. So the culture, it's just freeze-dried, just a freeze-dried culture. Do that, we'll let it set. Hey, Mommy. There's veal rennet, and then there's vegetarian rennet. For soft cheese, I like to use the vegetarian rennet. I like the way it sets better. For hard cheeses, I prefer the veal rennet. And so we're just going to do something like, I got too much, like 1/8 of a cup of cool water. It needs to be non-chlorinated. And we're just going to do a couple drops.
That's the rennet?
This is the rennet, yep.
So you don't really need a lot.
No. For like a hard cheese, like maybe you use 1/4 of a teaspoon. And you always have to dissolve it in water, because if you don't, like where you put the drops in the cheese, it will like curdle right there.
Wow.
So you've got to dissolve it in the water. So then you just mix the culture in. And the milk is really delicate at this point. This is, so you have to, they recommend stirring up and down, up and down. It's really not that big of a deal with a soft cheese, but I feel like it's probably a good habit to just start with, because as you get into harder cheeses making, it is really important to be really gentle and stir it up and down like that.
What will happen if you don't?
It makes the curd tough.
Okay.
So, then you just want to pour the rennet water solution through a slotted spoon so it disperses it, and mix it right away. And they say to do it for a couple minutes. I find that what I did is plenty usually. So then what you want to do is you want to put a lid on it, depending on what kind of pot you have, like this can sit here just fine. If you have a thin stainless pot and it's in a cool environment, we want it to sit at 72, around 72 degrees for about 24 hours, 18 to 24 hours, something like that. And so it sets and cultures and does its cheese thing. With the magic of pre-planning, it ends up looking like this. And so this is what a nice curd is gonna look like. You're gonna have whey on top. You shouldn't really be able to see the curd in the bottom. And that whey is excellent for starting culturing fermented vegetables and such.
Is that a gallon in there?
That is a gallon. So I always put a hole under my pot to catch the whey. So if I want to ferment something, or if not, like the chickens love it. They're crazy love it. Pigs love it. Oh my word.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, you said that you can use pasteurized milk.
Yes.
But ultra pasteurized, no.
You can.
Okay.
It's hard to set.
Right, okay.
If you're going to do that, what I would recommend is like an hour after you make the cheese, mix the rennet in, I would come out and check, or I would check the pot. You can tip it to the side, and that curd should pull away from the side a little bit already. If it's still like milk consistency, I would put a couple more drops of rennet dissolved in water in it. And you can do that a couple times. But it's challenging to set. And so you want to be really gentle with the curd at this point. So I use a ladle. I'm just going to get this out so you can see what the curd looks like. It's always good to dampen your cheesecloth first.
Helps it go through it better.
It does. Makes less of a mess, I find. So there's what the curd looks like. And it's a good consistency. I started this batch at about 3 o'clock yesterday. So it's not quite 24 hours. 12 hours I don't find to be enough. 18 to 24 is usually a really good number. And so then I just like to tie it up. And I like the consistency of the cheese, just letting it set. It will drain quicker if you hang it. This just seems to be more gentle, and I really like the consistency a lot better. So I like to let it set. I usually let it set for a full 24 hours. Depending on how creamy you want it, you can do, I would say anywhere from like 12 to 24 hours for draining.
You just let it sit like that?
I do.
No refrigeration, just let it sit like that? Okay.
Just like that. Yep. And then we'll have some finished stuff that we can flavor. I just store it in Ziploc bags. One really nice thing about Fromage or Chevre is that it freezes really, really well. You can't tell that it was frozen. A lot of cheese isn't like that.
Yeah. And that doesn't matter if it's cow or goat?
Okay, and so for salt, I find that I like a teaspoon of salt per 16 ounces or pound of the curd. It's just about 8 ounces. And so I'll do a half a teaspoon of that. And then we'll just do the garlic Italian herb. So I do half a teaspoon of the garlic. And 3/4 of a teaspoon of the Italian herbs. Let it mix. What's nice about this cheese is that it's super flexible. You can make it sweet, you can make it spicy, you can make it savory. It can be used in place of cream cheese in cheesecakes. So it's a really versatile one. Jalapeno is great. Jalapeno is fantastic. Wasabi, I've done a wasabi variety, which wasn't my thing, but some people loved it. Sweet, I've done huckleberry, I've done peach. Around the holidays, I do an orange honey cardamom. I've done like a pumpkin cheesecake variety, savory, cilantro lime. The garlic Italian herb has been my best seller through
It's my favorite.
It's so good. It really is. I've done tzatziki, like with fresh cucumber chopped up in it. That was really a yummy option. Dill and lemon. This type of cheese, if you wanted to do something a little bit different, you can take, this is a croton mold, and so instead of ladling the curd into the cheesecloth, you can ladle it into these, and it'll make these little cheese buttons. You let it set for a couple days, and you salt the outside of it. Same curd, same recipe, same everything, but then you get these little buttons, and you can put them like in flavored oils, and it lasts longer. This will last probably about 3 weeks in the fridge, the fresh stuff, but if you put it in oil in the button form, it'll last quite a bit longer. Super important, I would say, when you're starting out your cheese making journey is a notebook, and take meticulous notes, like even things that seem like silly, like, you know, it cooled down to this temperature in this amount of time or whatever. Like, that's the difference between a really great batch of cheese and a mediocre batch of cheese. So I would just take meticulous notes. I did that for years and years and years.
So you can compare
yeah,
what happened.
Absolutely. Yeah. I probably was like, I don't know, 6 or 7 years into my cheese making journey. I think this was probably, I think Shelby was probably working for me then, not you. But for the life of me, I had failed batch after failed batch. And I mean, like, I was making like 4 of those pots a day, and they wouldn't set, and I couldn't figure out what it was. I'm trying to think what it was. I think it was that I ended up having a goat that was too fresh. Like, if it can affect the cheese setting. And I actually had that happen when Rosie freshened this year. I made a batch of cheese, and I was like, this is not right. And I remembered, oh, it's because of that. I didn't write that in my cheese making. Just get a feel for it.